So should you be using a credit or a debit card? That's the question we're going to tackle today. Hey folks, there are a lot of opinions on this question. Some financial programs strictly forbid any form of debt and thus the use of credit cards altogether, without actually considering some of the advantages they can provide. Just because credit cards technically create debt, they must be evil, right? Well, for me, the answer is actually not so simple, and I'm actually a big fan of using credit cards, but doing so wisely. We'll dig a little more into that in just a minute. Now, ultimately, this decision really is a personal one, but let's walk through some of the considerations you should take into account when making the right choice for you. Okay, debit cards are up first. The argument for only using a debit card usually revolves around the fact that it's very difficult to overspend when you only have the cash in your bank account available to you. You buy something, your balance goes down. If you have no money, you can't buy anything. Pretty simple. Supporters of this tactic argue that there's actually a psychological element at play. When you see the dollars and cents leave your bank account, you're more likely to think twice about spending that money. This is probably a valid point, but I would argue the same probably holds true on a credit card if you think about those transactions in the same way. The obvious benefit here is you run literally zero risk of going into debt. You may be able to overdraft a few bucks, but you're not going to be subject to high compounding interest rates and debt that accumulates and grows over time. Another potential plus is that a lot of banks actually offer a rounding up program, which allows you to save a few cents on every transaction. And while it's not a lot on each, over time it actually can add up. Now let's talk about some of the cons. For me, the biggest one is actually protection. I don't know about you, but I have to replace a card at least once a year. We live in a very digital world, and there's so many opportunities for bad actors to get a hold of your information. I just assume it's already out there, and I tried my best to be diligent and catch it. With debit cards, if a fraud charge posts to your account or a fraudulent transaction posts to your account, there is some protection, but it's not nearly as what you're going to get with most credit cards. Typically, your bank and the FTC require you to report fraud on a debit card within a certain time limit, and failure to do so can actually end up putting you at risk for losing that money for good. In some cases, you may get a full refund. In other cases, you may be subject to a $50 or $500 sort of co-sharing loss. But I'll include a link below on a great article that describes how this works. Long story short, there's simply more risk here when compared to a credit card. The other con for me is around cash flow. With a debit card, you, again, only have the amount of money in your bank account available to you. And when your bills are due, you got to pay them. So that can create some stressful planning. Credit cards certainly offer more flexibility here, and you can typically decide which day of the month you want your payment to be, and that can help with planning. So magical credit cards are the answer, right? Well, not for everyone. It really boils down to one simple question. Are you disciplined enough to control your spending on a credit card and pay the balance in full every month? If the answer is yes, then credit cards may be the way to go. As you can probably guess, the biggest pro for me on credit cards is the protection they offer. A fraudulent charge? No problem. Report it and literally watch that transaction disappear from your statement. Most credit card companies are extremely efficient at dealing with fraud. In fact, many are good at detecting it for you and even proactively mitigating that risk. Beyond fraud protection, some cards offer different levels of benefits, including things like extended warranties as well. I'll give you a great example. So I play hockey, and hockey sticks are stupid expensive, like $300 stupid expensive. And they actually only come with a 30-day warranty. So here's the challenge. Go turn on the TV, turn on an NHL game, and count how many hockey sticks break in the first period alone. Okay, now you feel my pain. I buy hockey sticks with a credit card that offers an extended warranty. So if it breaks actually outside that 30 days, but within the card's extended warranty, I can still get it replaced for free. Speaking of benefits, that's the next pro really for credit cards, is their rewards programs. There are so many options out there, but it doesn't make sense to go through them all. From cashback to travel, there's pretty much a program out there for everyone. I prefer cashback programs, and I personally use a couple of different cards. Some provide 5% back at specific retailers. Others give like 3 to 6% back on groceries and gas. I have an everyday card that pays 2% back, and a couple percent isn't much, but I'm going to be spending this money anyway. I might as well, make it work for me. Another pro worth mentioning here is that you will be building credit by using credit cards. Makes sense, right? Most people are not going to buy their next home with cash, so if you are planning to finance a house or a vehicle at some point, then it actually is in your best interest to build solid credit over time. And using credit cards is a great way to go and do that. Now for the big con, which is pretty obvious. Debt. If you are not disciplined with how you use your card, then you definitely run the potential of accumulating debt. And unsecured revolving accounts like credit cards are notorious for high interest rates. If you end up in a scenario where you're carrying a balance and making minimum payments, you'll quickly see why some people swear off credit completely. It gets expensive and fast. A smaller potential con, which may not be a con at all, is that your credit report will always reflect some level of debt. Even if you pay your card in full every month, since you're always using it, there's always going to be a balance. But again, if you're working on building credit, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. So TLDR, I advocate for using credit cards. I think they are a very useful financial tool when used appropriately. If you're the type of person that can be disciplined with your spending and make sure you pay the card in full every month, then this is a strategy that will serve you very well. If not, you could always look for a credit card that allows you to set your own monthly spending limit. This puts up the guardrails to make sure you don't go overboard. It just doesn't make sure that you're paying for bills versus, that shiny new hockey stick. But that's just my opinion. Drop a comment below and let me know yours, and thanks for watching, and we'll talk next time.